Hello, good afternoon, everyone, viewers at home. I really want to appreciate you for your support so far, especially as we are approaching the end of this year 2024. I really want to appreciate viewers, uh, especially the academic members of the academic community. We want to appreciate you, students, and home and abroad. Today is another opportunity, which is going to be the last opportunity for this year 2024 to meet us in the area of advanced toxicology. So, um, Omega Bio-Edutainment, this is in furtherance of our educational series, which is a part of the core area of this platform. I really want to bring to your notice that we have actually upgraded in our meeting up with your needs at home, especially when it comes to the issue of assessment. At the end of every lecture, just check on the comment section. You'll be able to see a kind of quiz between 20 and 30 questions that will be tailored towards the specific topic that we will treat, we must have treated that day. So that at least that one will also guide you in preparing you ahead for any exam that can actually come in that, and to actually help your understanding of that same topic. So today we have actually come to further our knowledge in advanced toxicology. So, and that is the reason why we are advanced toxicology. Okay. In this course today, we are going to focus on two key terms and terminologies in advanced toxicology, which has to do with toxico toxicodynamics and toxicokinesis. Toxicodynamics and toxicokinesis. The first one, which has to do with toxicokinesis, is asking a very important question, and the question is how uh, the body how do the body handles the toxin. If there's a toxin now, how would each person, or how would the body handle that? And that is going to actually lead us to very key, four key stages and processes, which has to do with ADMI. A is standing for absorption. Okay, so after that, D is standing for how it is being distributed. That is a distribution. Then the third is going to be how is the toxin or the poison, how is it being metabolized? So metabolism. And the fourth process, which has to do with the last one, which is excretion. Okay, so all this will come under toxicokinesis. Toxicokinesis. Okay, now on toxicodynamics, that is what will be the impact, what will always be the impact of toxin on human body. So we will actually look at that, is that what will be the impact, that is how do toxin, how do our body, how do we handle, do how toxin, okay, how toxin, okay, what toxin do to the body. So I said the first one is how will the body handle the toxin. So that one will lead us into four processes. So and that is known as a toxicokinesis. Toxicodynamics now, we want to know what will actually be the impact of that toxin on the body. And just like we have been saying all this one, this is going to talk about mechanism of action, mechanism of action, mechanism of action. So that's the first thing that we need to know. Then the second thing that we need to know is DRP, that is dose response relationship. So just like what we have been explaining so far, that has to do with dose response relationship in terms of knowing what they do at cellular stroke molecular level. So we are going to look at that. Then the last aspect of toxicodynamics is doing for a process called toxicity. So we want to know the ability of each substance to be able to handle this toxin. So that is how harmful is that substance. So these are very key, two key parts of toxicology. We want to know how do the body handle toxin. So it has to pass through these four stages. Then what do toxin do to the body? That has to do with those mechanism of action, those response relationship, as well as toxic or toxicity. Okay. Now, at the end of this topic or this topic today, we will now talk about at least three or four different two or four. We will talk about three case studies. So, and each of these case study we will consider their toxikinesis, that is toxicokinesis kinetic effects, as well as what is going to be the toxicodynamics. And the first one we are going to look at under that case study is those that were involved in lead poisoning. That is, if somebody is involved in lead poisoning, so we are going to examine the how it is being absorbed, how will it be distributed, how is it going to be metabolized, and how can it go and be excreted. Then we will also talk about the toxicodynamics of it. We look at the mechanism of action of the lead. Then we look at what is going to be the dose response relationship, as well as what is going to be the toxicity. So then the second aspect of it, second case study, we will look at paracetamol poisoning, or what is called overdose. So the chemical name for paracetamol is known as acetamo, acete, acetaminophen. Sorry, acetaminophen. So we are going to look at the overuse of it or overdose of paracetamol. Then the third one, we are going to look at cyanide poisoning. Cyanide poisoning, people that are exposed to cyanide. We will look at the toxicokinesis and the toxicodynamics. So cyanide poisoning. Okay, so we are going to look at each of these. And lastly, in this same topic, we will now look at the recommendation of recommendation that we can give in order to be able to do what? In order to be able to avoid each of these. So it is going to be our guide for this topic, and just a kind of reference or a kind of emphasis. I have said that today on advanced toxicology, we are going to treat two very important terms and terminologies, or very important parts of toxicology. The first one has to do with the toxicokinetics. That is asking us how will the body, as if somebody is exposed to a toxin, what is going to happen, what are the processes or what are the stages of how that toxic substance, how is it going to be handled by our body. So, and we are going to look at absorption rates, look at distribution, metabolism, then how it is being excreted. So before we now move on to the toxicodynamics, which has to do with what will be the impact of a toxin on our body. So after that, we'll now start considering 3 case studies, and we'll look at lead poisoning, example of lead poisoning. We'll look at paracetamol overuse or overdose. What will likely, how is it going to be? We'll look at the toxicodynamics and toxicokinetic event of it. Then the last one, which is going to be cyanide poisoning, we are going to look at. And based on all this, we'll now cap it up with making certain recommendations. Don't forget that a toxin is any chemical or any substance which could be natural or it could be synthetic as well, in which we are being exposed to, and at the end of the day, it is going to cause any harm depending on the route of administration, as well as the dosage. So all this is what we have been used to in the area of our elementary knowledge of toxicology. So don't forget what you have on the screen. So that is how we are going to handle this topic today. So we will start with what do we mean if you are talking of toxicokinesis. We'll start with toxicokinesis. What do we mean? If you are talking of toxicokinesis, what does it actually mean? Okay, so let's start on that note. So toxicokinesis in toxicology, what does it actually mean? So don't forget that I said toxicokinesis is actually dealing with how would our body handles toxin. So toxicokinesis is asking us how the body handles toxin. Okay, so that is that. Now the first thing we will look at is so that is, if there is any toxic substance. Now if there is any toxic substance, or if there is any if there is any toxic substances, so how will the body handles it? How will the body handles it? That is, what are the processing stages that will be involved? What are the processing stages? So the first process is for the body is for the toxin to get into the body, and that is called absorption. The first stage is absorption. So what happens to absorption? The first one is that how does how will the toxin how the toxin enter the body? That really matters. It matters a lot. So how does it enter the body? Is it through the skin? Is it through oral injection? Is it through inhalation? So it matters a lot. So, and this could be, just like I said, it could be through skin, it could be through the lungs, or it could be through digestion. So it really matters. So in trying to study that, it is actually referred to as absorption. Okay, so the way it enters the body. How would the, for example, now, if the target of that poison or the target of that toxic substance, if it is the lungs, if it is the lungs now, the how will it get to the body, to the lungs, to the final target organ? Is it going to be ingested? Is it going to be through dermal exposure, or is it going to be through inhalation? That is the totality of what is this. So an example in that case, is that if you swallow any toxic substance, if it is through injection, that is, if you swallow it, it is going to be, if it is swallowing, if swallowed, it will eventually get into the digestive, to the stomach, or from the stomach it will circulate into the bloodstream. Okay, so okay, let's do it this way. So now, if it is swallowed, that is oral, which is the mouth. From that mouth, which is oral injection, it is going to directly get into the stomach. Then from that stomach, it is going to get into the intestine. So, and from the intestine, it will get straight into the bloodstream. So going through these stages, that means that toxic substance must have been absorbed from the mouth, getting into the stomach, then gets into the intestine, and later on into the bloodstream, where it is going to be circulated into some major or vital organs, where it will be circulated into vital organs. Okay, that is the first stage. The second stage now, has to do with distribution. Don't forget that at this point in time, it's just one way, one straight way. It has not been distributed. So from the bloodstream now, don't forget it has gotten to the bloodstream. So from that bloodstream, it will now spread. Into various organs. From bloodstream, the liver will have its own, the kidney, the lungs, the heart. All these are part of the routes depending on the target. So that is what is called distribution. What is absorption? Through the oral, which it is swallowed, is going to get into the stomach. Later on, it will get into the intestine, Then from the intestine, it will get into the bloodstream. So the second stage, which has to do with distribution, is that from the bloodstream now, it will now be distributed. That poison will now be distributed into various vital organs. So sometimes it can also be brain, depending on the target. Then sometimes it can be to reproductive organs. Okay, we need to know this. So the third stage of toxicokinesis is now metabolism. Is metabolism. This is metabolism is how the body will break it down. How will the body break it down? Breaking it down might involve making it more harmful or making it more harmless. So that is metabolism. So now, from the various organs, now from these various organs, from the bloodstream to the various organs, now if it gets to the liver will either make it more harmful or make it more harmless. So whichever it is, the liver or any of these organs that will now detoxify, they will try to detoxify it or make it more poisonous. So depending, and don't forget that whether it is going to be harmful or harmless would depend on the dose. It has a lot to play in the area of toxicokinesis. So before we now go to the last one, now the last stage is the stage of excretion. The stage of excretion, and that has to do with how is it going to be passed out through urine, feces, or it can be in form of sweat. That is, how will the body eliminate? That is a elimination process or elimination routes. Is it going to be in the kidney? Don't forget that the kidney has the ability to filter through through glomerulus. It's going to filtrate it and then send it into pass it through into the urinary tract, and it will be excreted. Then it can have its own journey towards the large intestine, where it will be converted into feces, and from there it's going to be excreted through the anus. Okay, or it can be metabolized or pass. It can be eliminated in form of sweat on the surface of our skin. So generally speaking, what should be the take home in this journey of toxicokinesis is the journey of a toxin. The journey of any toxin or any toxic substance will start from absorption, then it will get to the stage where it will be distributed, then to the stage where it's going to be metabolized, then finally it's going to have its final journey where it is going to be excreted. So we actually need to know that. And not only that, so that one will now be the last point, the last journey of this toxic substance, so to say. So just I want you to take your time, maybe in few seconds, that you'll be able to put this one, you'll be able to put it down as you have it on the screen. So the journey so far will depend. That's why we call it toxicokinesis. That's the journey of toxin. It's going to start from a point, starting point, then it's going to a destination. So when you get to that destination, that is how it is going to be eliminated or excreted. So just like you have it on the board, you will see, you have it already on the screen. You will see that the journey, just like I said, toxicokinesis is how the body will handle toxin. It's a process that involves four other stages. So the first stage is absorption. So that is which routes, the route of exposure. Is it going to be through the skin, or is going to be through the lungs, or is it going to be through digestion? So, and I told you that if it is swallowed, it will eventually get into the digestive tract. So just like the route you see on the board or the screen, that you have the mouth, that is oral, then straight away it will get into the stomach, then straight away it's going to get into the intestine, then again eventually it is going to go into the bloodstream. So whenever it gets to the bloodstream, so it's going to enter the second stage, and that is a distribution stage. So that one is going to start from the last one, which is a bloodstream. Then it will now be distributed into the various organs, depending on the target for that same poison. It could be towards reproductive organs, or it could be through the liver, to the liver, kidney, brain, the lungs, or it could be through the heart. So that is the second stage. The third stage now, which is a metabolism. Metabolism has to do with how will the body break it down. Is it going to break it down into harmful, or is going to break it down into harmless substance? If it breaks it down to whichever, depending on the functionality of that vital organ, which is the liver, which play a very critical role in detoxification. So it could get into harmful substance, break it down into harmful substance or harmless. So the last stage, the last process, or the last journey is going to be towards elimination, which could be as a result of excretion through the normal one, which is urine, or is it going to be through feces or sweat? So generally speaking, toxicokinesis is nothing but the journey of a toxin right away from its starting point to the end point. So that is the best way to understand what toxicokinesis is all about. That is, if you are talking of toxicokinesis, that means your interest is to know the journey of a toxin right away from the point of the starting point down to when it is going to be eliminated. So it is the overall journey is going to be that. So now we are going to look at the second very important key terms that will actually influence how toxin is going to be and what is going to be the journey of a toxin. So the second, that one will now lead us to the second point, which is toxicodynamics. Toxicodynamics. I told you that toxicokinesis is actually kinesis from kinetic, that is the movement of toxin in the body from the journey so far. That is toxicokinesis. And toxicodynamics is how effective, or measuring the rate of impact of a toxin in the body. So Then how will the body actually react to it is what is called toxico. So the second one, which is toxicodynamics, okay, that is a kind of dynamics or dynamism, means changes in the body. So that has to do with the first point to consider, or the first process, is called the mechanism of action of each poison matters a lot. So it matters a lot. The mechanism of action matters a lot. For example, there are some, so it's like measuring the level of damage, or of the potentiality level of damage of to the body, level of damage to the body. That is the overall impact, and that is under the mechanism of action. Okay, and don't forget that there are some example which we have mentioned. Some of them are will cause damage to the cell, some will cause damage to the organ, so some will cause damage and interfere with biological processes. Some of them will interfere with biological processes like protein synthesis, signals transduction, receptor binding. Some of them will binding to receptor organs or receptor sites. Okay, so this one depends actually on the mechanism of action. That is why one of the various ways that you can measure the impact, or how toxic a substance could be, is to measure the mechanism of action, or to know the mechanism of action. If you know the mechanism of action, once the toxin has actually started its journey, you will be able to know where you can actually trace it to. For example, it's just like somebody that you want to transport a luggage from, let's say, from Lagos to Abuja. So by the time you need to know the routes. You need to know the routes. You need to know the stopping points. So by the time you want to actually monitor it, you'll be able to estimate, including the time it's going to take for that. So that is measuring the mechanism of action is also very, very important. So just like I said, some examples, some poison are very, very important, because some of them will go and lead to go and poison the cell. Some of them will interfere with organ. Some of them are going to interfere with biological processes like protein synthesis, like photosynthesis, like anything that has to do with signal transduction. Then some of them will go and bind on receptor. They will compete with the fighter enzyme of the body. This is very, very important. Then some of them will not even bind, but they are going to lead to symptoms. Some of them will lead to symptoms. We start bringing up symptoms such as paralysis. It's going to paralyze certain organ, rendering them to be inactive. So some of them will lead to what is called necrosis and apoptosis. So these are part of mechanism of action of some toxic substance. So the second very, very important thing that you need to know about the dynamism of a toxin, that is telling us how or the impact of a toxin to the body it has to do with a dose response relationship, which we have I have actually taught you this in the earlier video. So the more the severity, okay, you need to know this, that the severity of the effect or the impact of poison, that is of any toxin, will depend on the amount of that substance. Invariably, it is talking about the dose, the dose ingested, or the dose of that uh, depend on the amount or the dose of exposure. So whether it's going to lead to death or it's going to lead to either chronic effect or acute effect will eventually depend on the dose that is being swallowed. So that is why it is very, very possible, it is that you know what is going to be the dose response relationship of any toxic substance. So what we are saying in essence is the higher the dose, the more the impact. The higher the dose, the more the impact, and the impact could be lethal, that is, it could lead to death. Okay, so if you are, that is telling us that if you are exposed, if the body is exposed to very low dose, it is very possible that that might not even cause much effect. So just be chronic. The effect might just be chronic. Okay, so that one will now lead the third under toxicodynamics, and that is a toxicity. That is a toxicity. Okay, what do we actually mean if we say toxicity? So toxicity is measuring the overall ability, overall toxic ability of any substance, overall ability of any toxic or toxin, toxic substance to cause harm. We are measuring how effective, how dangerous any substance is in the body. That is, you are trying to measure the toxicity. For example, some substance like asbestos, like asbestos will actually take a long time. Will take a long time, and it has the ability to cause cancer. Inhalation of asbestos will cause cancer. Then so this one is a long-term effect. This is going to be a long-term effect. So if you want to actually measure the effects of asbestos or the effect of exposure to asbestos or the toxicity of asbestos, means that you are going to, it's going to be a long-term process, because it's going to be a very long time, because it can lead to cancer. And don't forget that cancer will not actually start immediately. Cancer will start its journey from mutation. A certain is the effect on in causing sudden change in the genetic makeup. Then the second thing is that substances like cyanide, their own effect is immediate. Their own effect is immediate, because it is short term. So ability to now measure the long term effect of any substance, or measure the short term effect of any substance, means that you are trying to measure the toxicity of that, and that is what we are going to see along the line. So that is so generally speaking on toxicodynamics. So generally speaking, you are talking about the impactful how impactful will a toxin or poison be on the body. That is the general question you are trying to ask when you are talking about toxicodynamics of a poison of toxin. So I told you that the overall question, the summary of the question you are asking about toxicokinesis is that you are trying to tell us about the journey. How is the journey of a toxin? How is it going to be from the starting point to the end point? That is the point at which the body is going to eliminate it. The starting point is going to be the absorption. That is the route of exposure. And the last point is going to be at elimination stage. That is a toxicokinesis. But in terms of a toxicodynamics, this time around, is going to start with measuring the mechanism of action, knowing the mechanism of action, know at which is going to be the organ. Is it going to be at cellular level, molecular level, organ specific level? Is it going to affect the biological process? So including measuring the symptoms, because sometimes it's going to lead to necrosis and hypostosis, then which will also paralyze the body. So the second one is to measure the dose, to know the dose response relationship. And the dose response relationship is to know the actual dosage or the actual dose that is so effective that will cause any harm into the body. So that is where we would have not said that the severity of the effect of any toxic substance would depend on the dose or the amount that is ingested. And the second thing is that you dose, the more leader or the more impactful that the effects could be. So also toxicity, which is measuring the ability of any toxic substance to cause any harm. And we have said that toxicity could be a long-term effect, could have long-term effect, or it could have a short-term effect. If you are talking about short-term effects, that is when you are trying to measure like cyanide poisoning now, is going to be immediate. And if you are measuring the capability of asbestos to cause any harm, that is going to be a long-term effect, and which eventually it is going to lead to cancer. And I said cancer will not just arise one day, so it must have started from the level of mutation, which has to do with measuring or asserting genetic change at a genetic or DNA level. So you need to be aware of these two concepts in toxicology. These are very, very important concepts in toxicology because we'll be talking about toxicodynamics and toxicokinesis. So just like I said, I'm afraid we might not be able to continue. But I have listed it for you. What are going to be the 3 case studies that we will consider in these 2 important concepts, which has to do with the first one. We'll look at the case study of lead poisoning. The second one, we'll look at acetaminophen poisoning, that is overuse of paracetamol. We'll look at the effect. Then we'll cap it up with the effect of cyanide effect, and that is going to be in another video. So don't forget that I said I'm going to leave some quiz to test our knowledge and assess our knowledge and understanding in this course that has to do with toxicokinetics and toxicodynamics. I'm going to leave it in the comment section. So just try and attempt those questions several times and after time so that you'll be able to be so sure that you really have the good understanding of what toxicodynamics is and what toxicokinetics could be. And later on, when we come back, we are going to talk about the case studies that has to do with these two concepts of toxicology. So don't forget to uh, leave a comment in the comment section, hit the notification button so that anytime we drop any video on omega Bio-Edutainment, you will be rightly informed, and like and also subscribe.